Hello, Bethany. Today is Wednesday, which means it's story day, and I have one of my favorite stories I want to tell. Actually, it's two stories from two different parts of the Bible. One's from the book of Matthew, and one's from the book of Luke. But they kind of talk about the same subject. First one is the greatest commandment. The Pharisees were a group of people who had lots and lots of laws. Altogether, they had more than 600. Whew! That's a lot of rules to follow. One day, one of the Pharisees said to Jesus, "Teacher, what's the greatest law?" He didn't think Jesus could possibly pick just one law out of so many. He was trying to trick Jesus. But Jesus knew the man was trying to trick him. He looked at the man and smiled. Love God with your heart, with all your soul, and with all of your mind, Jesus said. That's the greatest of all the commandments. But there's another one that's really important too. Love your neighbor as yourself. If you obey these two laws, you obey all the laws and prophets. Now, when Jesus says you'll obey all the laws and prophets, he's saying you'll obey everything written in the Old Testament. So you take the whole Old Testament, and everything written in that says love God and love your neighbor. In this, you fulfill all the law by loving God and loving neighbor. Now, the next story has to do with the same lesson, but it takes place in Luke. This time, called the Good Samaritan. It's one of my favorite stories. A clever man who thought he knew all the rules for living God's way asked Jesus a question. He wanted to see if he could trick Jesus into giving the wrong answer. "Teacher," he said, "what must I do to live forever with God?" Jesus asked another question. "What do the commandments say?" The man answered, "The commandments say you should love God with everything you have, and you should love your neighbor as much as you love yourself." Jesus replied, "That's the right answer. Live like this, and you will live with God forever." "So, Jesus," the man continued, "who's my neighbor?" That's a hard question. Jesus answered the question with a story. A man was traveling down a scary road all by himself. All of a sudden, a group of men jumped out. They stole his money and hurt him, leaving him by the side of the road. He moaned and groaned in pain. He couldn't get up. He was hurt so bad. A little while later, a priest was going down the road. He saw the hurt man and passed by him on the opposite side of the road. Later, another man came along. He was a leader in the church. He passed by on the other side of the road also. When a Samaritan came along, Samaritans were not liked people. They were kind of hated by the people at that time. When the Samaritan came along and saw that the man was hurt, he stopped to help him. A tear ran down the Samaritan's cheek as he bent down to help the hurt man. He put bandages on the man's cuts. The Samaritan huffed and puffed as he tried to lift the man onto his donkey. He took the man to the nearest inn and put him in a room. He took care of him for the rest of that day, and the next day the Samaritan had to leave for a few days. He paid the innkeeper to take care of the man. The Samaritan promised to return and pay the innkeeper any more money that was needed to care for the man. He wanted the hurt man to get better. After Jesus finished the story, he asked the clever man, "Which of the three was a neighbor to the man who was hurt by the bandits?" The man replied, "The one who stopped to help him." Jesus told him, "God wants us to help everyone, people of every size, shape, and color, and from every country. are important to God. Now go and be like the Samaritan. Help everyone who needs help. Help everyone who needs help. See, love isn't just a word that we throw around and say we're to love everybody and feel good about it. Love is an action word. Called to be disciples of Jesus, we're called to action. Love is active. We show love by seeing everyone as God's children and showing everyone the same care. It doesn't matter what color they are. It doesn't matter where they come from. It doesn't even matter if they know Jesus. They are our family. And we're to love them with our heart, with our actions, with our words. We're to love them like we love ourselves. We're to love them almost as much as we love God. You see, I think that's the problem in our world today. Too many people think that they don't have to love everybody. They think they can turn their backs on some people. They think they can say that some people don't belong. Everybody belongs. Everybody's loved by God. And God wants us to love everybody and welcome everybody. Even if they were a hated Samaritan, we're to love all. So how can you love people today? Think of ways you can show God's love today, maybe in your house, or to a friend, or to a grandmother or grandfather, or even to someone you may not know. How can you show God's love? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some toys that I'm no longer using, and I'm going to clean them up, and I'm going to give them away maybe to some children who don't have those toys. And maybe that's one way I could show God's love. Have a wonderful Wednesday, and we'll talk tomorrow. God bless.